a kid in New Mexico be able to go and move to Kentucky and have something that is recognizable as a measure of achievement, I think is a good idea. I don't think we know what that should be yet. So, there was, yes ma'am.
I would like to know, in your opinion, why USA doesn't move like the rest of the world to vocational learning, meaning separated from the high school as one goes to college. You know, because to graduate from high school, you have to have 4 credit maths that many kids are not really capable of doing it. And they still insist that those kids have to achieve. And it's not going to happen because the nature of the human being, you have different levels of comprehension.
Yeah.
And there is so much money put in so many things that if we just decided to do it this way, you know, like having vocational schools, this solve the issue. But they still insist on hitting their heads against the wall. Yeah.
If you all couldn't hear the question is why does the U.S. continue to kind of beat on this dead horse, or deceased equine, as we would say in Kentucky? If you look at a state, by the way, this isn't true everywhere. If you look at Massachusetts, Massachusetts has a history of vocational high schools. They still call them vocational high schools. And they are some of the top performing academic schools in the state. Kids start in 9th grade in shop. Blackstone Valley Tech, Minuteman Tech, and several others rank amongst the best high schools in terms of academic performance in transition to post-secondary, primarily 2-year, because that's where the technical ed is. So there are places that are examining this or doing things differently. But we have 50 states. We have 18,000 school districts. In Germany, in Austria, Finland, France, there's an education ministry, writes the curriculum, everybody follows it. Everybody has the same test, if you will. We'll never do that because education is not a federal national thing, despite what some presidents have tried to do. Yes, ma'am.
In New York, they have 33 ways to get into children.
Yeah.
And they have a big vocational consortium and about 10 high schools. Like from 9th grade.
Right.
Technical.
They call them BOCES, B-O-C-E-S. Yeah.
So, you know, they have that. So what we have in New Mexico is not necessarily U.S.
Yeah. Michigan has that, Oklahoma has that, Virginia has that. Most states actually have regional technical centers or vocational centers. Some are really good. By the way, Massachusetts Massachusetts in 9th grade, they choose to go to a full-time, full-year vocational high school for 4 years. Some places many places have shared time centers where the kids go half a day for their academics here and then get on a bus, go to a technical center for the other half of the technical. But here's the problem, or the challenge, the issue. One is we'll never change that approach. What New Mexico ought to do, I would argue, is look around and figure out what's the best that we see elsewhere, and can we learn from that. But in the context, I would argue, of building a system that works for New Mexico. New Mexico is not Kentucky, it's not Massachusetts. It's unique, you have unique challenges, you have unique opportunities. But there are ways we can learn. There was another question. Yes, sir. And then ma'am.
I just wanted to make a comment that make it relevant, especially for higher education. Did you know that 30% of statistics are made up?
All of these were. Secrets out of the bag.
From a higher ed perspective, I think one of the problems is the legacy that vocational training has always been attached to a tracking system.
Yes.
And therefore delegated to certain populations.
Right.
And so forth.
Poor and minorities.
Right. The second one is that once it's delegated, then we tend to think that it's delegated to the community college. So therefore, we do find many community colleges having an applied type of associate degree with no end, not connected with some of the degrees that we have, such as engineering. And then the other one is that I think that CTE in general lends itself more to a competency type of skills rather than credit hours in the traditional sense that we have. I think those are challenges that I see from your presentation.
Yeah. I sit on the National Academy of Sciences panel for the National Academy of Engineering. and we're actually looking at this question of pathways to engineering, from high school to 2-year engineering-related programs to 4-year engineering-related, and they call them, you have engineers, and then you have, oh, fuck, just lost the term. Anyway, I think you make a good point, and if you think about the system has to address this point, and that is they should start in high school, and the community college may be the pathway to get to the 4-year program. It may be all they need or want. The idea of stackable credentials is not just industry stackable credentials, but that learning has to then flow into what goes on next. I will make many arguments about how engineering is not developed properly in terms of curriculum at the 4-year level, because we've looked at that, but that's a different conversation. But no, good point. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I have a two-part question. Obviously, you make the kind of changes that you're a proponent of, and I think probably everybody in this room is. You have to change the conversation and the policies. Mm-hmm. So my first question is, nationally, is there any move toward that? Some of you that are here probably heard Diane Ravitch at the CC conference.
Yeah. She's not a happy camper.
Secondly, has our governor or our secretary of education?
No, but I'm cheap but not easy. Or is it the other way around? I always get that part confused. I'm happy to talk to anybody, and have talked to governors and state. I've testified in Texas and Florida and Minnesota to legislative committees. I'm happy to do that. Back to the national question. Yes, from President Obama on down, they are talking about this, although I still think in the back of their mind they're thinking we got to get these kids to college and then life will be good. Even though they talk about 2-year colleges and other credentials, I think the default is still traditional college. But the first thing is to get the words right, which they've got, and then to get them to understand what the words mean, which we're more or less there. If you look at some states, again, Kansas is one, other states, they are really moving this way. So everything I shared with you here is going on somewhere. I didn't make this stuff up, although I frequently do because I'm a college professor. It's 30% of my statistics. But everything I shared here is going on somewhere. And again, my argument is think systems, look around, figure out what's going on in your state and align with that, but then figure out who's doing what that's similar that you could learn from. Education is context bound. Scalability is a real challenge. What I mean by that is just because it's working in Massachusetts, you just can't take it whole cloth and make it work here, because New Mexico's unique. Your students are unique. Your culture's unique. It's beautiful, but it's different. So how do you adapt that to make it work here? And I'm getting all kinds of finger gestures. New York, we're number one. Thank you very much, and I hope this was helpful. I will have the materials for you shortly.
Thank you. So, Dr. Stone, when was the last time you were in New Mexico?
I was here a lot in the 1990s, working with the University of New Mexico and a bunch of stuff.
I'm just wondering how much more time we have before we have to invite you back.
Oh, back then you'll catch a plane, and they go really fast.
Okay, well, Dr. Stone, thank you very much for the presentation. I know that it's probably about 1.5 years ago we had a webinar with some of the Perkins project directors at the time. And
us to take the fiduciary and judicious responsibility of implementing a well-written application. So this is the time for the come to Jesus talk, if you will. And we're here to help you really take on writing a much better application each year. Continuous improvement, as we've talked about. So right now, we really want you to go deeper, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. A little bit more clarity. We're here to help you. As you know, it'll be one of those things that as we look at it, it will be probably returned to you to say, go deeper here, go deeper there, and look to mapping your communities. So we're going to talk about the key elements of a well-written application. Okay. First and foremost, for your convenience, when you're building your team, some of you have requested and we listened. You said, we want to be able to sit down with our team and see what the whole